All right, I have some more questions here I need to catch up on, and this first one here is from Gil, and it's related to using OM Workspace to import files directly from the camera. In this case, is OM-1 and EM1 Mark III. And essentially, your question is, in the import from camera panel of OM Workspace, the two memory cards have an identical card name, OM-1. Can different names be assigned to differentiate them? So basically what you're doing is you are plugging your camera via USB, and then clicking storage, and then going into workspace. And then this is where your question comes in, is you do import from camera, and what you see is OM1 and OM1, and this is for card slot numbers 1 and 2. Now in terms of order, the first line item is always card slot number 1, the second line item is always card slot number 2. So maybe that's enough, but the other thing you can do is, if you could do import from specified location, and then you can see we have drive J and drive K. So this is card slot number 1, this is card slot number 2. But before you even open up Workspace, open up your Windows File Explorer first, and then you'll see your two card slots here. And the first one is always card slot number 1, so just rename it. I just hit the F2 key on my keyboard, and I'll just call this OM1 card 1. And then I'll rename this one OM1 card 2. Now open up OM Workspace. And as you mentioned in your comments, if you do import from camera, nothing's changed here, right? We still have just OM1 or the camera name. But if you look in the file manager here, you'll see that the new name here, OM card 1 and OM card 2, are clearly labeled. So what you would do instead is import from specified location, and then go down to, say, card slot 1, double click there, double click here, and then select the individual folders like that. And now you can just simply import this way. And then when you want to do card slot number 2, you would just do this, import from specified location, go to card number 2, select the folder, and say OK. And you can just do import all images, or you can handpick the ones that you want to import, or go to the thumbnail view and select specific ones that you want to import this way. And then in this case, you would do import selected images rather than import all images. Now I realize the workflow when you do import from specified location is not quite as smooth as doing import from camera, but if you do need to differentiate card slot number 1 and 2 very distinctly, that would be the way I would do it. All right, the next question here is from C. Martin, and it says here that you don't like the new menu systems on the OM1, and you prefer the ones on the M10 Mark II better. But essentially your question is, I can't find a way to go straight to one of the later pages of the settings. And the shorter answer is you just rotate the front dial. So I'll show you that, but there's a lot of other settings in the menu itself that have changed the behavior of how you navigate the menu system. So for the benefit of everyone, I'm going to go through all of those. But I'll do yours first. So I assume what you're doing here is you're just hitting the menu button, and then you're using the D-pad to kind of go through the menu. And as you can see, you have to go page by page by page. And if I want to get all the way over here to the wrench menu, that's a lot of button pushes. So the shortcut is basically to just rotate the front dial. So we'll click the menu button. And right now I'm on the wrench menu. If I want to go back to shooting menu number 1, I can just rotate the front dial, and that'll skip from section to section to section. And then I can rotate the rear dial to change, what page I'm on in that section. So I can go back to shooting menu 1 and just rotate the rear dial, and then I can use the D-pad. But the D-pad does the same thing as the rear dial. So you have a choice there. Now there's a couple of other settings in the menu on how you can navigate the menu system. So let me show you what those are. All right, so the first set of settings is actually all the way over here in the cog menu. And you want to go to page 2, and you want to go to menu cursor settings. And you have two choices here. There's 3 line items. The first one is page cursor position. So for each page, do you want the cursor to be in the same place, or do you want it to reset and go back to the top of the page? So let's say I do save. So when I go from page to page to page, you'll notice that the line item here, we're on monitor adjust, custom mode, HDR, it's kind of all over the place, right? Up and down this way. So let's go back here. Let's go back to page 2, menu cursor settings, and rather than save, we say reset. So what this does is it puts the cursor back to the top of each page. And now when I go back into the menu system and I scroll page to page to page, you can see that the cursor always starts at the top. So let's go back to the cog menu, and then let's go back into the menu cursor settings. Then the next line item here is menu start position recently. So that's what we've been doing. So basically whenever I push the menu button, it's going to go back to the same place we were before. So for example, if I was in shooting menu number 2, and I go out and then I come back in, it's going to go back to shooting menu number 2. So that's what it means by recently. It's going to use the most recently menu that we were in. However, let's go back into the menu cursor settings and change the menu start position to shooting menu number 1 in this case, like that. Now when I push the menu button, you would think that it would just go to shooting menu number 1 every time we push the menu button. But as you can see, it did not in this case. And if I push it again, it's not going there. And I think what the logic here is that if you don't push any other buttons from the last time you pushed the menu button, or after a certain amount of time, it seems, it's going to go back to the most recently used place. So if I push the menu button now, let's see what happens. I didn't do any operations, so I think the logic is the camera's assuming you want to go back to the same place. But if I do any operations, like if I push the D-pad or something, now when I push the menu button, it goes to shooting menu number 1. So let's change it. Let's say we're in movie mode and we get out and I don't do anything. You know, I'm just kind of pointing the camera around for framing, and then I push the menu button again. This time it goes back to shooting menu number 1. So it seems like sometimes after a certain amount of time, or if you do any operations, that's when it'll go to the position that you specified in the menu cursor menu. So let's go back in here and change this to be my menu. So you can see if I push this, it doesn't go to my menu. But if I do some other operation in between and hit the menu, now it goes to my menu. Or if I change this and hit the menu button, it's going back to the most recent one, not back to my menu, because I didn't do any operations. But again, if I do any kind of operation and hit the menu button, now it's going back to my menu. So just keep that in mind when you're using that. I don't think it should work like that. It should always go to whatever we specified here in the menu cursor settings. So this is not very intuitive, but that's what I found how it works. All right, then the last one is just shortcut the B mode settings. So let's turn this on. And what that means is if you put your camera into bulb mode, now when you push the menu button, it's going to go directly into the bulb mode settings. But you can kind of back out still. There's the menu. You can back out one step, back out again, like that by hitting the menu button and go anywhere you want. But let's say we change it to off. Now when we push the menu button, it doesn't go to the bulb mode settings. It just goes to the most recent, or in this case, it should go to my menu too. If I do any other operation, now it's in the my menu. So personally, I think OM Systems needs to fix that menu start position line item so that whenever we select, say, shooting menu number 1, or we select my menu, it should always go to my menu when we push the menu button, not have this like delay or have to do some other operation first before it'll do that. And while you're at it, why not add the other menu items to that specific menu position line item? So why is it limited to just those 3, right? Recently, shooting menu number 1, and my menu. Why not make it go to shooting menu number 1, shooting menu number 2, or movie menu, or autofocus menu? Have it jump to any menu that we select. Don't just limit it to those 3. So please do that in the next firmware. That would be greatly appreciated. Now there is one more sort of inconsistency in the menu. So let's go over to the cog menu and go into dial settings. You'll also see here where the rear dial, like I showed you before, can move through the different tabs. You can have it loop yes or no, right? So if we say yes, right, when I push the menu button and I use the rear dial to go to the different pages, it's going to loop back to page 1. It's not going to change the section that we're in. So it'll always just kind of loop around. Versus if I use the D-pad, it's going to skip to the next section. Or if I use the rear dial, it's just going to loop within the same page. So again, logically, I would think that setting would affect both the D-pad and the rear dial. And the fact that this particular dial setting, which has to do with the menu, is not in the menu setting doesn't make sense to me either, but I just thought I'd show you that as well. So overall, and I know this is subjective, but I do think the new menu system is a substantial improvement over the previous menu system, with all those caveats like some of the ones I mentioned in this video and what I've talked about in my live streams with the bracketing menu. But in any case, I hope OM systems can work on these things either in a firmware update for this camera or in their next camera. And everyone watching, I hope you find these videos helpful. If you do, consider supporting my channel by making a small donation on links below or buying me a coffee, because they are greatly appreciated and they help me to continue making videos like this for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.